Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This one is going to be about San Diego Comic-Con 2025. It's going to be a kind of final speculation because of course it's happening next week, and also just a reminder that there are two other Avatar things happening next week as well. City of Echoes, the next Avatar novel, is out next week also. So on Tuesday the 22nd, City of Echoes is going to be out on hardcover, exclusive hardcover from Barnes & Noble and Indigo, ebook and also audiobook. So very exciting stuff, the start of a new Avatar Legends series about the minor characters, the unsung heroes. It's a good book. I have lots of coverage of it. I'll have more coverage of it in the coming days as well. The other piece of news is that Book 2 Earth soundtrack is also out next week. This is more on Friday, as you can see here, July 25th. It's going to be out on vinyl and also digital platforms. Vinyl is going to be a little bit hard to get. I'm not sure what the availability really is, but you know, it's out there, of course. So pretty big week for Avatar, especially because at SDCC we do have 3 official panels, not 4. Turns out the duplicate merchandise panel was a duplicate. I don't know how exactly it happened, but they've updated the schedule to remove the Thursday merchandise panel, so we only have 1 merchandise panel on Saturday. So Saturday. So let's go through this. So here are the panels. We have Thursday from 10 to 11 PDT. We have Nickelodeon's Avatar The Last Airbender 20th anniversary panel. So they're really highlighting this, the 20th anniversary. Even though we got a lot of the information on this back in like February when it was the actual anniversary, they're highlighting the entire year as the anniversary year. This panel has most of the main cast of the show. We've also got Jeremy Zuckerman here on the music, as well as Mike and Brian are also going to be here. Now, in the description, obviously there's no mention of news or anything like that, so it's a little bit unclear what exactly the actual makeup of this is going to be in terms of like, I can't imagine it's just going to be an hour of talking about ATLA and how good it is. That just seems so weird given that like they are really pushing this panel. More so than the other 2 panels where there actually will be news, they're pushing this panel. That this is the reason they have a big show floor presence and they're doing all this stuff, is that they have this panel and all this other stuff at their booth. So we'll talk about that in speculation in just a second. On Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. PDT, we have the Avatar Legacy panel, which is the publishing panel. So you can see here, Abrams Books, Dark Horse, Webtoon, and Magpie Games. Standard description here. Right now, I think the only people we know on this panel are Randy Rabai and Judy Lin. So on the novel side of things, but we do expect Dark Horse are probably going to have a good showing here. So this one is where we're ultimately expecting most of the news from Comic-Con to come from still, but we'll see what happens. Then Saturday, like I said, this is the remaining merchandise panel, 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. PDT, the Merch Nation Avatar The Last Airbenders toys, games, and action figures. So yeah, we expect this to be quite Jazzwares focused because they're the company that are doing the Avatar toys. Now they also mention like, you know, its partners, so multiple companies I guess are going to be at this thing. Game lines, that doesn't really fit what Jazzwares is doing, so there will be other people here. Sneak peek reveals of what's coming up and all that sort of stuff. So we haven't had an Avatar merchandise panel before, so this one could be interesting. It's just, yeah, who's actually going to be here? But yeah, Jazzwares is what I expect to be the focus, but we'll see what happens. So expected news. So on the show floor, outside of the panels, there's a few things happening. There's the Magic the Gathering Katara promo card, because of course Avatar has a Magic set coming out in November. They're doing a promo thing here as part of the event. Specifically, this is part of their outdoor activations at Petco Park. It's got a Magic Avatar activation where there's like a cosplayer, but you'll get like a giveaway bag, a recipe card, and a special Katara promo card. So we'll get to see another Avatar Magic card, which is exciting. That'll be our second one. And we'll see what else happens with that. That could be something at the merchandise panel, but we'll see. This is kind of interesting. Legend of Aang The Last Airbender t-shirts and tote bags. So this is the movie that's coming out in October next year, the first Avatar Studios project. Again, from the press release, you'll note this bit here about customized baseball t-shirts and tote station is that you can get t-shirts and tote bags and personalize it with stuff from these various franchises. And it mentions Avatar, but also mentions Legend of Aang The Last Airbender. Now, what characters and art do we have from the movie The only thing we have is the logo has been officially revealed. So that's my assumption, is that it's just going to be that, which will be interesting just by itself. But the idea is there more? Is there going to be a visual? Who knows? And then other merch is just to highlight that they do have Comic-Con exclusive figures and collectibles, t-shirts, pins, and stuff like that. So there will be other merch that we maybe get a look at here, because they do seem to be going all out. So there might be some new stuff there. So, as for the 20th anniversary panel, like I kind of talked about, the description doesn't mention anything about, like, they'll tease stuff, there'll be news. It seems to mostly just be a reflection on the 20 years of Avatar, on ATLA itself. But the question, as always, is, why do a big 20th anniversary panel event if you don't really have any news? This is an active franchise. This is not like we're coming back to Avatar for the first time. The cast and crew are coming together to speak to each other for the first time in years. No, if you look at the convention circuit, like, most of these voice actors attend most of the major conventions in, like, America and stuff like that. You can maybe make the point that, like, it's maybe going to be the first time that that core group of voice actors is meeting with Jeremy Zuckerman and Mike and Brian for the first time in a while. But even then, like, the amount of access we've had to these people on, like, the Brave and the Elements podcast and stuff like that, like, we have not been starved of content involving the kind of cast and crew all that much. We've had this sort of, isn't Avatar great, isn't it an amazing show, for years and years and years. So in my mind, like, if they don't talk about the future to a certain degree, I'm kind of like, what are you doing here? Because again, this is the focus of, like, the whole press release, more so than the publishing announcements and stuff like that. It's this panel. So I think it's reasonable that we go in here with sort of expectations that, like, well, what are you doing here at this thing? Like, are you actually just going to talk about ATLA for an hour just because it's the anniversary? I don't know. I don't expect big Avatar Studios news. Like, I think that's the clear point here, is that, like, I'm not expecting anything significant about Avatar Studios at all. The movie is 15 months away. They're not going to overdo it at this point. We're only going to get stuff much closer to the time. That's how, in general, most things get marketed these days, especially movies, especially Paramount. It's going to be much closer to the time. But because they do have this big kind of platform, I can't see them maybe just ignoring it and stuff like that. So I think a tiny update could be on the table. At best, I think we get a teaser image or poster just to continue the conversation, because Legend of Aang: The Last Airbender and Seven Havens have been officially announced in the last couple of months. Again, you know, a few weeks back, like a couple of months back, we did get the full reveal of Legend of Aang: The Last Airbender. We got the logo, finalized release date, I guess. And then for the anniversary press release, of course, we did get the Seven Havens announcement. So both first projects have been officially revealed. But interestingly, say, like, when Mike and Brian appeared on the Brave and the Elements podcast this season, they didn't mention any of it, even the officially released information. Whereas now they're going to be at a live event here, big panel. Are they going to actually say anything? So, yeah. The best, I think is going to be an image or a poster, but I would at the very least like to hear Mike and Brian just say some positive stuff to the fans and the audience, of just talking openly about the project. It would just be nice to get something like that. But yeah, the point is just, you know, why is the anniversary, you know, significant? It's not like it's a reunion kind of tour type thing. We've had this for the last few years. It's an active franchise, meaning I think people go into an anniversary panel expecting news of some sort. We already have separate publishing and merch panels, so they can't just do that as the news. There are some things left over from the anniversary press release that they still have to announce. But otherwise, yeah, it should be about, and next year, Avatar continues. Because the first project is older ATLA characters, so that is exciting. Otherwise, like, the only thing I can maybe think of is, like, they do have this to still announce, Avatar Chibi Minis on the YouTube channel. It is a 2D animated chibi stuff that we are expecting at some point this year. So if they don't announce that here, I don't know when that's actually going to get announced. So there's not too much left over from the anniversary press release, but there's that. So this could be a whole lot of nothing, but it also could be something interesting. We'll have to wait and see. publishing panel. So this is where we actually do expect news. It's the only place really it's like absolutely guaranteed like proper news. So on the novel side of things, I think Awakening of Roku cover and description, maybe some date confirmation stuff is going to be probably the main takeaway from here. Because if they don't do this here, there's no way they're waiting until October at New York Comic Con if the book is actually coming out December 30th, because that's the current release date that it has. If it's a little bit more delayed, maybe they could wait until New York Comic Con, but at the same time, why is Randy Rabai there if they don't have this to talk about? I think they finally do need to reveal this, especially because like I think if you haven't been super paying attention to the novels, you'll just see like this new book coming out in the usual slot that the Chronicles of the Avatar series is coming out in, and wondering like, hey, what about Roku? Why does he not get a second book? What's going on? So they kind of need to confirm some of this stuff just from a getting the information out there perspective. Otherwise, I'm not really expecting any novel information, because I don't think they'll reveal who the next Chronicles of the Avatar stuff is here, just because Awakening still has to be announced. Maybe a slight chance that they talk about who the next character is for Avatar Legends, just because that's going to be the big thing here, is the debut of the first Avatar Legends book. It'd be cool to say who's next, but I can maybe see them holding that one back for New York Comic Con. And that probably is what they will do. Awakening of Roku detailed here, and then at the next con, the next Avatar Legends book. So that's that. Dark Horse then are the ones who really have to deliver. They realistically have to do multiple announcements. If they don't do multiple announcements, it's a little bit like, come on guys, what are you doing? They have at least 3 things that we basically know exist that they do need to properly announce. So Korra one-shot comic number 2. This will be the kind of follow-up to Mystery of Pension Island, because we know it is a one-shot trilogy. That's just the first one about Mako and Bolin. So they need to announce the second one and who the characters are. We don't have any Korra content apart from Mystery of Pension Island this year, so they kind of need to get some Korra content out there. Otherwise, Korra's very forgotten in the year. So this is the kind of announcement I want the most, just because I think we need to know what the kind of production schedule is on these Korra comics and what's happening, because of how long it took that Mako comic to come out. Avatar is also doing one-shot comics. We're not entirely sure they're moving straight on to the third one-shot comic trilogy, because it is going on to number 7, which will be the start of a new themed trilogy. But we don't know for sure they're doing that. But I think we do think they're just going to keep it standard. So this is definitely on the table. This might be, if there is still issues with the production on Korra comics, the Avatar comic might be the more likely announcement, but we don't know. And then comic miniseries, just to explain this again, because we have so little information on this. From the anniversary press release, once again, in publishing, you'll note that they talked about a bunch of stuff that initially we didn't really know what they were. Middle grade chapter series, that's Bending Academy Light It Up. YA series is this book, that's new. But this comic miniseries from Dark Horse is not a thing we know anything about at all. There's been no details on this outside of this one mention in this press release. So that is something we are kind of expecting here. Now, the one thing with this is perhaps if this maybe is a tie-in comic to the movie, it's probably pushed back with the movie. But we don't know that that is actually the case. If it is a separate thing to the movie, and it is going to be kind of coming out as planned, they kind of have to announce it here, because if they wait until New York Comic Con, they're waiting too late to get the information out on it before the end of the year kind of type thing. So yeah, I think we have to get at least one of these announcements, realistically 2, just because the communication has been so poor from Dark Horse. I would be very surprised if we got all 3, just because again, I think they do want to hold back some sort of an announcement for New York Comic Con, but at the same time, they have to fill out the schedule a little bit. So I'm interested to see what they do. My guess is they don't really want to have the Avatar and the Korra comics come out as close together as they did this year, where it was only like 4 weeks apart, give or take. So they probably want to split them. And I think the split of like the few months between the cons is probably the way to do the release as well. So I think we're probably going to get probably this and one of these 2. And then we'll get the other one at New York Comic Con is probably my guess. There is absolutely the opportunity for other stuff, like say a new comic miniseries, not comic miniseries, short story collection like Team Avatar Tales and stuff like that. We kind of need one of them at this point because there's some free comic book day books that need to be collected that we don't have information on, of course. So there's other announcements that they could do, but yeah, we go in at least with the idea that this is what Dark Horse are working on. We just don't have the announcements yet. Magpie and some of the other publishers, like, I don't know really if they're going to have anything here. Magpie feel like the one probably more likely to, just because, hey, Voyage of the Unity is done through Beetle and Grimm through Kickstarter. It's not out until like next year. They can't really talk about it here because the Kickstarter period has ended. So they kind of have to talk about what's actually upcoming next for them in terms of their own stuff, not Beetle and Grimm. And that realistically has to be the Spirit World book, which they've said a few times at this point that they are still working on, but we still have not got a reveal on it yet. And because of how, you know, very quickly it's becoming like the schedule for the RPG is like quite light, they need an announcement here. So I want to see what they do there. Webtoon, I'm not expecting anything. I don't know if they'll say anything. And then the other kind of publishers, the other books, we might get some cover reveals for like I Am Sokka. I'd actually like it if they talked a little bit more about the Bending Academy series and just like covered some of that stuff. Maybe reveal the cover for the second one, kind of highlight how many books are going to be in each series. That would be kind of cool. So there's definitely stuff to talk about. There is a lot of publishing stuff if you look at the upcoming release schedule, but ultimately I think most people will just be wanting the novel information and the announcement of some new comics. The other stuff is sort of like, we'll get to it when we get to it. Then the merchandise panel. So like I covered there with the description, it doesn't mention anyone in particular who's going to be there, but obviously with a big toy line reveals, it has to be Jazzwares that they're talking about here. And especially because we know Jazzwares have two of the exclusives at the convention. They have the Collector's Zuko and the Little Elemental Aang, both from Jazzwares. That's clearly the direction that they're going in. This is going to be the highlight of this panel is, I'm guessing, breaking down what the full wave breakdown is for like wave 1 of everything. What we know what they're doing is they're doing a collector's action figure line, fully articulated, that sort of thing. They'll have a gimmick action figure line where it's not as much articulation, but they have kind of action features. There's two different blind box figure lines, one of which is this kind of size and scale, and the other one is smaller, cheaper, and has more kind of cartoony eyes, that sort of thing. They also have a line of plush stuff and also dress up / cosplay items. So they're going all out. They have the master license, I guess. What it means is we don't really know what the other stuff is at the panel because, like, okay, there is other people who do merchandise, but like, is Funko going to be here? I'm not really sure. Like some of these other companies, you think they'd have their own panel. Like I mentioned here, like Avatar Magic the Gathering. Like, well, they're focused on the Spider-Man set in terms of the Wizards panel. So I don't think outside of the Katara promo card we're expecting too much Avatar MTG stuff, but maybe they might have their own reveals to give at the Avatar merch panel. The gaming aspect, I'm not really sure what they mean. Like there's Avatar Clue, Avatar Trivial Pursuit has just recently come out, but it's not really a sneak peek of an upcoming thing. So what's next? Are they talking about the two kind of Kickstarters, GameFound stuff that are coming out, those games? I'm not really sure. So there's actually the room for some interesting merch reveals here beyond the Jazzwares stuff, and especially if Jazzwares maybe go into like wave 2s. I think because it is Avatar Legends as well, it would be really, really cool if they did reveal Korra stuff, but we have no idea what the full situation is here. But I think the merch panel could be a surprisingly interesting one, but again, it's not going to be for everyone because I know not everyone follows the merch, but it's just worth mentioning there. Also, probably worth mentioning as well at the end here is we have no idea how good coverage is going to be of these. I don't really expect any of these to be streamed. I don't think we have any information on that right now about if any of them are going to be actually available to watch, at least initially, live. So we are probably going to be relying on people kind of live tweeting, live blogging from the panels, and whatever official announcements that they make. So usually the publishing panel, the idea is when it comes to stuff like, say, this, if they have a cover reveal, they'll post about that officially on social media. That will happen. Cover reveal and stuff like that, they'll do that. It might take a while, which is usually pretty unfortunate how long it takes. But hopefully we'll have people who are there active and we'll find out what actually happens. And that should be fine for the merch panel and the publishing panel, because it'll be actually structured in the form of like announcements. This bigger panel, though, I'm guessing there will be the capacity for like better coverage on this one. It's just, is there actually going to be anything that's worth covering is the idea. This feels like the sort of panel they probably should stream, but I don't know. It's an interesting one. So it's an odd year this year, because it is still the year that's sort of the calm before the storm. It's next year when things are probably going to kick off, where we'll go into a lot of these events just truly 100% expecting news on the movie, potentially on Seven Havens, especially when we get to later on in the year next year. But for now, we're still over a year away from this stuff. And it's just the case that, like, are you really going to miss a big opportunity at a giant convention like this, where you have a giant presence for the franchise? You're not going to say anything. Kind of feels like, you know, there's maybe the slight chance for a teaser, not a trailer, just a teaser image or something like that, them saying something of note about it. But otherwise, I think it's kind of more business as usual with Comic-Con this year, where the focus is more on the publishing panel and, at least this time, the merchandise panel as well. So we'll see what happens. I'll do my best to put up like news coverage of this myself when we get the information, but as ever, it's usually a little bit messy, especially SDCC. New York Comic Con usually is a bit easier to cover, just because it feels like more active people in the fandom go to that one than San Diego, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's been the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. What are your expectations for San Diego Comic-Con this year? What publishing announcements do you expect? What merch announcements do you expect? And then, do you think there will be anything except just a TLA chat at this panel? Let me know in the comments below. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.